It's not, I think, well, the property itself extends slightly to the rear of where the rear wall of the garage was.
Yeah.
So there would be some raising of ground levels where the property is, but beyond that, there wouldn't be any raising of the ground levels in the rest of the garden.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you've got a very defined level there. That front level is going to stay so that it matches with that existing property.
Yes, yes.
Right, so that's good. So this is across the road from River Court, and I remember, you know, Johnny, that the people had to get into their houses with canoes, but I don't know how much, to what extent they went into the actual building. So the car park flooded and they had to park their cars down the road, but I don't remember the actual buildings flooded, but because the ground is a lot lower. So you go into River Court and you go down into the car park, whereas this is up. I mean, all right, I don't like it, but that's not a planning reason. But I can't see how we could object to putting, on the basis of flooding, to put in a house in that slot.
Yeah, it's worth noting that the front, the access and the egress of the dwelling is at the same level as the neighbouring property, and there'd be no change to that. No.
Yeah.
Okay, Michelle, and then if you want to come back afterwards, John.
So there's no record of this property ever flooding that we know of, or the car park flooding, or...
The car park has flooded, we've got records of that.
Yes.
We don't have records, which basically means it hasn't been reported to the council within the last 25 years that this property has flooded.
Did they close the Thames barrier during any of those times of the 25 years?
Yes.
So therefore, it doesn't mean it doesn't have any effect then.
Right, John?
Yes, the 2 points is that the River Court, the car park was actually lowered to take into account the loss of area for the building. So the building doesn't flood, but the car park floods to a lower level than it originally had. That was how they got around the problem of keeping the same volume of water being able to flood that area. And secondly, looking at that garage, the actual ground behind does slope down behind it. So when they put the building in, they will be removing an area from which could be flooded from this when the Thames barrier is raised. Okay.
But sorry, can I come
Yeah,
back?
Wayne, please.
But I think I don't disagree with you, John. But you're talking about what, 14 to 15 square metres of increased ground level at the back at the very worst. And do we honestly believe that that is going to be so detrimental to the application it's going to cause flooding? Do we?
Well, it's the only flooding problem is London, and the problem really is that Thames Conservancy, not Thames Water, have been very adamant over the years that all that area right the way up to the Thames floods to about 3 foot deep. And I don't know if you remember it, but we did have a barn which caught fire, and it caught fire because the flood water got in and the hay got wet and the hay spontaneously combusted. That burned on the A4, just over the road from where we are now, for about 3 days. And that was mainly because it flooded into the barn. The water came up about 3 foot on the other side of the A4 there. And there's a lot of flooding. This floods at least twice a year. Those fields at the back there, at least twice a year. So the fact they've got no records for 25 years doesn't bear. It's not reasonable because that is flooded at least twice a year in that area.
Sorry, can I just clarify again that it's we're talking about the property. We haven't had any reports of flooding for that particular property and the surrounding properties. In terms of the fields, well, we wouldn't have records of that because it's residents that report flooding to us for their own properties. And then just to go back to your comment about the Thames Conservancy. So I'm presuming that's now the Environment Agency, and as I've already said, the Environment Agency have been asked for comments and they've declined to comment. So
I am surprised on that because they've always commented on it and it's been a major problem. It isn't to do with flooding coming down, it's to do with Thames and the flooding of Thames. And I don't think we've gone to the right people to answer the question.
Justin?
Yeah, Chair, just to be clear, the Thames Conservancy was abolished in 1974. Its current body is the Environment Agency. The Environment Agency haven't commented.
The officers can do no more than write to them, and if they've claimed, then that's it. Angus?
That's my concern.
You're welcome, come again.
It just seems to me, Chairman, that we're talking about Thames. I think we said it was 1.5 miles away. The water that's next to this or close to this property is part of the Loddon and nothing to do with the Thames. Okay, I know water can back up in the end, but it does seem so remote. I believe this to be irrelevant to looking at this application.
Well, the only thing is River Court.
Put the mic on, please.
River Court does flood from the Thames. That's where the flood water comes from Thames to River Court, which is over the road from this property. It does do it.
Now, I think from what we've heard from the officer, we all agree that that area does flood, and this application doesn't flood. That's what I'm hearing. Right. Are we all but done? I did notice there were no construction. Councillor Grant.
Sorry, I just want to ask a quick question. Because Charleville Parish Council objected to this and said overdevelopment, and one of the other objections was saying after the second application it's still overdevelopment. So I'd just like to hear something about that, really, why it's not, I'm assuming, if it's being approved. Another thing to point out is, and I know it's kind of been covered in the agenda about narrowness of the site and the plot and the building. And also there's something in here about the bedrooms being very small, one of them not actually being taken as a bedroom. So it clearly is a very narrow plot. So why is that okay? Especially when one of the bedrooms is, it says it's not, doesn't count as a bedroom. So are we saying that this house can't be advertised as a 3-bedroom house if one of the bedrooms can't be called a bedroom under the regulations? And lastly, the trees, the very big trees that are outside that aren't, well, they actually are pictures. The applicant says that the roots are not going to be extending under the site, and I find that very difficult to believe with a 17-metre tree, but I'm not a tree expert, so is that true or not?
Would you like to turn your mic off, just so we can come back on those questions?
So, with regards to the narrowness of the site, there was a previous application on this site for a dwelling, which was refused, and the appeal was dismissed by the inspector based on the design of the dwelling. But the inspector concluded that the narrowness of the site had led to a poor design of the dwelling, and therefore it's now considered that by having redesigned the dwelling, that reason for refusal has been overcome. In terms of the bedrooms, the reason that that's been included is because the application description describes the house as a 3-bedroom dwelling, but in fact one of the bedrooms doesn't meet the required standard for a bedroom. So the reason that's been included is to provide clarity on that. And regardless of whether it is classed as a bedroom or not, the house meets the overall space standard that is required for either a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom dwelling. So it isn't relevant in that sense. And with regards to the trees, with the previous application on the site, which was located in a similar position, a reason for refusal on the previous application was included. At the time that the appeal was dealt with by the inspectorate, further information was submitted by the previous applicant, which demonstrated that there wouldn't be any harm to the trees. I think it involved digging pits on the site, which demonstrated that the roots weren't within the area where the house was going to go, and therefore that was that reason for refusal was not upheld by the inspector, and therefore we're satisfied at this point that there wouldn't be harm to the trees, subject to a condition requiring satisfactory details being submitted.
We're all happy now. Right, as I did start to say about construction times, then there's not a condition at the moment. Would members like to see one added.
Yes.
Usual ones.
Usual ones.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry, go on.
could you expand?
Well, Justin's just going to.
I'm
I
not going to speak to the same way she's doing.
No, no.
We have, if you recall recently, on a fairly small residential scheme, proposed planning conditions, Louth Road is the one I'm talking about, where the inspector said they weren't necessary on a scheme of that scale. So that's why we haven't proposed construction hours or a construction management plan. Clearly, in granting permission, it's open to members to put a planning condition on if they see fit.
Wayne?
I don't see how we can, because this is so small. I mean, a lot of household extensions are probably as big as this. So I think it wouldn't get my vote.
And that would tally with what the inspector said on that recent appeal decision.
Michelle?
But if we approve it and then add this in, are they going to go to appeal to remove a condition like that? How much is that going to cost them?
And they could appeal it if they saw fit to. But obviously we've got a duty to give you recommended conditions that meet the test of the circular. And if we don't feel they do, then we're not going to provide them for you.
And enforceable, isn't
Yes,
Yeah.
we've got to enforce it.
Yeah.
So am I feeling then from members we don't want the condition?
We didn't, we can't enforce it.
Okay, all right, I'll leave it at that. Right, we've all done then. The recommendation starts on page 83 and it's for approving the planning commission. So it goes on with all the conditions, and then on the members update there are, well, it's just about the change of condition 2. So all those in favour of approving this application, please show. And that's 1, 4, 5, 6, 7. And those against? 1 against. So the application is approved. Thank you very much, members.
You know this side.
Okay, as we get on to agenda item 24 on page 111, it's getting very quiet now in the audience. Whereas the Mulberry Business Park, it's a full application for the raising of the roof height to create new second floor and 14 self-contained residential apartments. This is for the committee as it's a major application, and case officer is Katie Harrison. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarity, on the members' update, there's been a change description. The proposal does not include a rooftop garden, but each unit has their own balcony. The proposal site is located within the settlement limits and within the Mulberry Business Park. This is located along Fishponds Road, which is just off Waivers Lane. So this is an image of the front of the building. And this is to the northwest of the building. And that's to the south west of the site. Beyond here is some residential properties and freeze close. There's a big screen of landscaping between the business park and them. And that is opposite the site. The site is located within a core employment area, and the proposal is for residential use. So it's putting an additional floor of units above an office building which has prior approval granted, converting the offices to residential or 43 units. Given that this prior approval has already been granted, and the prior approval has been granted for a number of the other office blocks in the surrounding area, including Highlands, Roseland, Oaklands, that the proposal would not be harmful in this respect. The proposal itself would not result in a loss of office space. Clarity. If the prior approval were not to be implemented, there would be a risk that there could be some conflict between residential above and offices below. So in order for this proposal to be acceptable, we're requiring the agent, and they have agreed to this, to complete the prior approval before the erection of the floor above. So the proposal would remove the existing roof and erect a new upper floor. The height of the roof is 0.3 metres higher than the ridge here, and it is set back from the sides, which give it a degree of imperviance. The buildings in the surrounding area have a variety of roof designs, including flat roofs and mansard styled roofs. Given this variation, it would not hit our character in the area. As I mentioned earlier, these are the residential properties of Reeves Way, and there's a big bank of landscaping here. The Borough Design Guide doesn't have a separation distance for flats to the flank of dwellings, but in instance we're using the rear of elevation of a dwelling to flats as a guide, which is 30 metres. And as you can see, the back of the outer windows to the flank of the garden would be over that requirement. There is a window here, but I understand it serves as stairwell, it is not habitable, and the distance to the balcony is just under that requirement. But bear in mind that that requirement would include the garden, which isn't there in this instance. The proposal would meet the council's and national room size standards, and each room would receive adequate levels of daylight sunlight. Each unit will have their own balcony, which will be private and achieve good levels of daylight sunlight. And they are the size that would accommodate normal activities associated with a balcony. As we requiring the prior approval to be completed prior to the erection of the unit above, we have considered the amount of parking required by prior approval, number of units, which is 43, and those of the current application. The site currently has 88 spaces, and this proposal plus the prior approval would require a total of 81. And so therefore, there's more parking spaces on the site that is required by policy. Policy CP5 requires that the proposal provide a minimum of 30% of total number of units as affordable constitution, as well as payment in lieu. The applicant has submitted a viability assessment, which has been externally assessed, which demonstrated the viable amount that can be provided equates to 96.5% of the amount originally sought. And this has been agreed by the councils from the housing advisor and is subject to section 106. For clarity, 2 additional conditions are recommended in the members' update. This is for amount of work and construction method statement. And it's recommended that the committee grant and commission, subject to section 106, section 111, that's for affordable housing, Thames Basin Heath contribution, linking of 2 applications together, and the conditions set out in the report and members' update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no registered speakers. Grant and Chair.
I'm assuming you also didn't seal on this as well as S106 because it's a large enough development that it should be provided so.
Yes, that's correct, but that's not required as part of the
Right, that's what you listed, that's S106 on it.
Angus, are you indicating?
Okay. Just on a lighter note, before I ask my real question, have we ever had any response from the Farnborough Aerodrome being in a consultation zone?
Not as far as I'm aware. It might have a bit of
It does seem to be. No, I think that probably government policy has dictated we have to look at these. I think it's unfortunate that we take up commercial areas and little pockets of residential without the sort of amenities. I mean, looking around the site, it's a long way to the next, or a first bit of green space, for instance, away from here. So, is there anything more that could be done in terms of providing some community space at ground level in that area? And just a confirmation that we are actually tied to government policy in terms of the general allowance for such conversions.
Yeah, thank you. And the difficulty is that if you have a look at the other 2 floors, they've already got consent for conversion under the prior approval process, so we have no control over that, other than in limited terms in terms of parking, flooding and contamination. So we're in a situation whereby the first 2 floors of the building have consent for residential beyond our control. So really, we have to look at the harm in terms of lack of green space, blah, 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 from this additional floor, and really it's very limited. It provides functioning amenity space, so there's not much we can suggest.
Well, just a question. I mean, if this sets a precedent and we have greater development on the area with residential or commercial property being turned into residential, will the situation come, or time come, that we have to provide amenities, and where does that responsibility lie?
We can't control the permitted development conversion of them subject to the prior approval process. So government has said that if you comply with this prior approval process, you can convert offices to residential. So that's beyond our control.
I'll just note that, as we've said about the seal contribution, that is meant to be
Well,
used.
yeah, I clear that, but you know, when do we enforce it to be used as a amenity? Can we?
Do you want to answer how that's used?
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at the nearest green space actually, and it does look like.
Elms Fields.
Viking field.
But yeah, so. Yeah, I mean there is amenity space within walking distance of the site.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I want to ask a question, a couple of questions really. Clearly this is, as has been pointed out, a top floor, and this is something that's already approved. So it's very difficult to kind of say, you know, any of these problems should have been dealt with on the first approval, really. So yeah, not a lot to refuse it, but I got to the end of this document, the affordable housing piece. It says that, you know, there's an exceptional need for affordable housing in the borough, and that's from 2016, and that's well out of date, I would suspect. It's much worse than that now. You know, they basically haven't provided any. So one of my questions is, what amount of affordable housing has come from the site as a whole? Because it seems to imply it's minimal here, but it doesn't mention a number. So, kind of my question is, why as a council do we not say we want this affordable housing? Are we absolutely bound to accept a commuted sum, or can we enforce that? And secondly, and this is, as I was getting more annoyed at this, I then read the bit about, you know, that the assessor has come back and said that actually, yeah, you don't have to pay as much as that. And we're talking £5,000 here. So on a site of this size, £5,000 makes it non-viable, according to this assessor. I find that very, very hard to believe, with the amount of money this developer is going to make from, what, 50-something flats, whatever it is. So, yeah, I'd like some answers around there, really. Also, yeah, I'm not suggesting we get rid of it on this, just, I'm interested.
Yeah, sorry, in terms of the overall scheme, the prior approval conversion doesn't generate any affordable requirements, so we can't get any affordable out of that. We can get affordable out of the additional units that we're dealing with here, and the council's housing officer has accepted an off-site contribution to go towards affordable housing elsewhere, other than instead of requiring affordable housing on this site. The contribution that they've accepted and which has been assessed is about 97% of what we would expect. So it's a very reasonable sum. And our assessor and our housing team don't object to that.
And because, just before you come out, and because it is such a small number, 14 apartments, if you did have affordable housing on site, you're only talking one house sort of thing, then it's not easy for them to actually manage it. So it's better for it to be commuted some, so it can be put somewhere and made to work a lot harder for us, for the council.
Okay, yeah, I accept that. I'm interested, why, two questions really. One, why it was the original approval that there was no affordable housing? What's the reasoning behind that? Because I understand, obviously, Mr. Novice here. And two, does the council actually have that power to say no? I can see why the council wouldn't say no. I understand and respect that point of view, but do we actually have that power to say no, we insist?
I can explain it perhaps separately if you want, but it's a prior approval process, which means that it's not a full planning application, and the prior approval process limits what we can consider to effectively to flooding, contamination, and high rate issues, and it means that we can't seek contributions for affordable housing.
Any more? For any more? No? Okay. Right, set out then on page 112 for approval. See the number of conditions there on the subsequent pages. And then on the members' update, we've got the additional conditions of hours of work and construction methods statement. Yeah, so all those in favour of this application, please show. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favour. Those against, we have 1. So the application is passed. Thank you, members. I think we can swiftly move on to the last item then, which is agenda item 25 on page 135, which is Ditton Pastures. It's a full planning application for a change of use of part of the Embrook building from D2 to D1 and nursery. Before the committee, as the applicant is Wokingham Borough Council. And once again, the case officer is Kate Anderson. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So the application site is located within Ditton Pastures Country Park. That's the entrance into the park, the main entrance. This is the main car park. And there's a block here, and the application site relates to half the building, and it's car number. The proposal seeks to convert half the building. This side here is not part of the application site and is currently occupied by Carp Shack, which is a fishing tackle shop. And proposed to convert this, currently used as part of the activities undertaken at Little Pastures, to a nursery. No external changes are proposed. In terms of sustainability, the proposal is located in the countryside and therefore it's not sustainably located. However, the proposal would utilise an existing building and would undertake activities similar to, in terms of traffic movement, as the existing use of coaches, etc., are listed in the park. In terms of sustainability, is no less sustainable than the existing D1 use. That's the current use of the building, and therefore the proposal is acceptable in principle. So the proposal is acceptable in that respect. The proposed nursery would employ 6 full-time members of staff, and they would use the existing parking facilities of Little Pastures. The applicant submitted a travel plan which sets out that they would tell parents and staff that they need to park in the existing car parks. There's no areas going to be segregated and need to pay for parking as any other visitor would do to the country park. And there is conditions so that no more than 24 nursing children are in the building at one time as part of the nursery. The application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's no registered speakers, so I'll go straight to the ward member.
I don't have any objections. I just have a question. I know you might be surprised with that. If this is going to be converted by the country park and then let out on a long-term lease to a nursery group, is that right?
I don't have information about the length of the lease, but yes, it will be leased out to an external nursery.
Yeah, so we in fact do the modifications to the building. I know there's not many modifications, and then we just lease it out. So we're in control of that site at all times, apart from the tenure, i.e. the lease.
In terms of the arrangements of the lease, so whether we need to do the works internally or they need to do the works internally is not a matter for an application, but you can discuss it with the Pastures team, which they can advise.
Great place to have a nursery, I think.
Okay, Angus, then Michelle.
Thanks. Yes, I've been to many meetings, occasions in this building, and I think it's a great pity to lose it. But of course, it's not a planning issue, but it will provide some income for helping to run the country park. It just strikes me, we're asked to agree the change of use. Would that then preclude the nursery from allowing its use when it's not being used by the nursery for uses similar to that which it currently entertains? Or does it preclude that, or does one class come under a sort of umbrella of the other one?
It would go to the D1 use, so that the D1 use includes creches, day nurseries, but it also allows clinic, health centre, library, all place of worship, that sort of thing. So if the applicant and the landlord were agreeable, it could still function for other purposes as well. But whether or not it would, obviously, is a matter for the two parties.
Thank you. I agree with Wayne. I think it's a splendid place to have a nursery.
Michelle?
I agree it's a splendid place to have a nursery. Hopefully the CPE agents won't lie and wait like they do for the scouts and try to give everybody tickets.
Yes, but
Just a question on the car parking. I mean, you've got 6 permanent staff who are going to be paying for all-day parking at Vincent Barge, just very expensive. 24 children, I don't know how many cars that would weigh to, but I imagine in picking up, they're not going to be picking up 10 minutes before, they're going to be there possibly half an hour before, so they're going to be paying as well. It's quite an expensive proposition for everybody, isn't it? I know it's, it's their problem, and it's not yours, but it just seems to me that the car park is going to work out rather expensive for staff in particular.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not.
No.
It will come down to, I guess, negotiations with the tenancy agreement and the car park arrangements. But it is a paid car park, and I guess that will be part of what comes out of those conversations. But I think all we're looking for is the point that actually there is no issue in terms of parking, and the peak is different from the park, and we have no concerns with it.
Well, having said that, at peak times, Clifton Parsons is very, very busy in the summer periods, so that car park can get pretty full.
Yeah. Right, any more? No? Okay then. Set out on page 135 then, recommendation being to grant plan permission. Obviously there's a number of conditions, although not very many, just the 4, and there's nothing in the members update, so all those in favour please show. And we have a unanimous decision there for the last application. It's passed. Thank you members.